Okay folks, it's Fat Matt Outdoors and we're glad to be here with you. Just take an opportunity to kind of explain this next video. We went to a new location. This is basically a old mining operation where they mined phosphate and maybe a marl pit or something like that. It's located in Central Florida. I'm sure if you take some time to research, it'd be easy to find. I'm not putting the specific name out there just because there are some people that fish this on a regular basis that I would say wouldn't appreciate the extra company. But if you find it, or if you want to message me personally, I'll be happy to give you the information. I do not mind sharing fishing tips, techniques, or locations at any point in time. I'm just not going to throw it out there just because it's probably not as well known or as public as some folks might think. So I'm just going to respect that for other folks and leave it at that. But we went to this mining operation, and the idea was we have fished it before, and we had several days that we were going to fish in a row, so we wanted to take the opportunity to see if we couldn't beat our personal best. And as I've said before, my personal best is 10 pounds 9 ounces. That was many years ago, but I've caught many fish in the 8-pound range, 9-pound range, but I've never broken my personal best of 10.9. My son's personal best at the time was probably a little over 5 pounds, maybe 6 pounds. He's since broken that. He's over 10 pounds now, slightly over 10 pounds. And so we just took the opportunity to go and try and fish. It didn't start out well. The morning should have started around 6 a.m., but because this is a fish management area, it's open to the public, but you just can't come and go as you please. So it's supposed to be open from 6 a.m. To 2 every single day that it's open, and that's usually Friday, Saturday, Sundays, and Mondays. They don't normally have it available to fish on Tuesday, Wednesdays, or Thursdays. And then there's some things that kind of change that operation depending on holidays and so forth. But I'm just going to tell you right now, you're not going to see us catch any fish in this episode. We fished hard for most of the day. It was a slightly different lake than we were used to, and there were some patterns going on that we didn't get the opportunity to key in too well, and we didn't necessarily have the resources with us or make the changes necessary. What you will get out of this video is an opportunity to see some of what we were using, some dialogue explaining what that was, and some of the changes that we should have made, and in retrospect, going back and thinking about that fishing trip and what we should have done different and what I would do different now to tackle that lake. Now, why is this important? You may think, well, I don't want to watch it if you didn't catch any fish. And I can understand that completely. But we've all been in a situation, if you've fished for any length of time, probably even one fishing trip, where you have not caught fish and you've wondered, what could I have done different? Sometimes you're in an atmosphere where you're not catching fish and you see other people catch fish, and if you're like me and most fishermen, you immediately start thinking, what am I not doing that they are doing? So at the very least, this gives you an opportunity to hear the hindsight of that fishing trip and explanations of what was being done and what we would do differently to try and encourage the fish to bite and to make that a successful trip. We have other trips that are to this same area that have been successful, and we do have footage of that coming up in the very near future. It'll give you an opportunity to kind of see what that looks like. But this is going to be a video that I'm going to break down in 3 parts. You may find that none of it is useful to you. That's okay. I find that it's useful for me, and it gives me an opportunity to go back and kind of recall what my thought process was while we were out there, and to also recall what I would do differently And whether you utilize it or not, I will use it as an archive to kind of improve my fishing ability and my success on that lake in the future. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, or if you're just curious as to what it's going to be like, I can't guarantee you a whole bunch of fancy bells and whistles and a bunch of creative cuts and edits in the process, but I can promise you some additional dialogue that will give you some insight into what we were doing. And at the very least, I'm sure it will trigger some thoughts in your mind on what we could have done different to be successful on this particular trip. So anyway, come along with us. Let's see what it's like to fish a new lake in a new area with kayaks and the gear we have and what could have been done differently. Maybe we'll learn something together. Maybe you can teach me something as well and leave it in the comments on what you would have done. Maybe you've got experience with this lake and you know some ins and outs that we may not have figured out by now. See you on the water.
Okay, so we're out on the water. We got a later start than we wanted to. Gates are supposed to open at 6 a.m. The gates did not open until 7:30 because somebody made a mistake. They say a new guy was on duty and he didn't know that he was supposed to open gates, and so forth and so on. So either way, we're out fishing and we are going to see if we can't catch some fish and beat our personal best, but either way, we're out here fishing.
So right here you'll see that I'm using just a basic spinnerbait. The water has a green tint to it, but it's really not that colored. If you look at the actual water, it still had a visibility of about 3 or 4 feet, maybe 5 feet. So I'm trying to fish the shallow areas of the water looking for morning feeding fish that might be kind of roaming around this area. And this is something that I do a lot of times on a new lake to try and at least get something going. I'm looking for even a little fish, just something to kind of give me some insight. You can see the ripples up here on the water. That's actually a turtle, not a fish. But you can see some of the vegetation underneath the water. So the water is not quite as stained as it gives the appearance. Now I am using 40-pound braided line. I do not have any type of leader on right now. So given the opportunity to do this again, I would have put a fluorocarbon leader on to help minimize the visual of the thicker braided line. This is actually a 7.5-inch Zoom black trick worm, which is kind of my go-to many of the times when I'm fishing. This is a beautiful lake though, and I'm confident there's a lot of fish on it, as we've caught fish on it after this trip, but utilizing some of this information, it helped us identify some patterns to be able to catch fish on future trips. Now you can just see right then and there's a couple of spots where we disturbed some fish, and those were bait fish, and at that point in time it gave me an idea to switch over to something that resembled a bait fish, and I chose to go to a rattle trap, and you'll see me with a kind of red and gold Bill Lewis rattle trap here in a little bit. checking the water depth here. It's about a foot, give or take a little bit. Right out here on this point, there was a bunch of ibis that had gathered on the point, probably eating small crustaceans. So this is where I've switched over to a rattle trap, and you'll be able to see it's golden red. Might not be the best color. A lot of times people go with a silver or a gold shiny rattle trap, but I kind of felt like that underneath the water the red rattle trap would blend in enough in the green water to give me the type of silhouette that I was looking for. So these lakes, they allow for a certain number of boats and people to be on them at a time. So this lake, they're allowed 5 to 6 boats, whether it's kayaks or whether it's motorized boats, it's allowed 5 or 6 boats.
Oh my God.
That felt like a good fish.
So, thanks for watching. I know that at times that may have been a little boring, but as you can see, there were several mistakes that were made in the process, and again, not knowing the condition of the lake and not knowing what we should have done. I did not have all the resources that I would have liked to make those changes. And that's a learning process in and of itself, because it gives you the chance to say, what would I take on each fishing trip, so that if I find myself in a situation that's different, that I have the opportunity to make the adjustments necessary. Appreciate you guys watching, appreciate you guys taking the time. Again, like I said, 3 parts, so look forward to the second part. There's some additional information there as well. And you know, heck, some of you guys are in northern states right now, you're slap covered in snow, and you just need a fix, an opportunity to see kayaking and fishing and good weather. So at the very least, it's a good view, sounds of the paddle in the water, and good conversation. Hope you'll stick around for the next episode.